his backfield, and here comes Connie McGuirk from the 10-yard line for another 6 yards. Space nicely. He works a pitch out to Billy Huddleston, and Billy breaks into the open on the 35. Then Delanovi for the scoring stab, and drive he does for the touchdown.
In 1954, college football was a game in transition. Face masks were coming into style. Teams were learning to pass. Powerhouses like Notre Dame, Oklahoma, and UCLA were becoming as popular as the hula hoop. A man known as Bear Bryant had inspired headlines for 8 years at Maryland and Kentucky. When he arrived at Texas A&M in February of '54, he was already a legend in the making.
Optimism was running high amongst the students, so we were probably a little scared. If you know, we didn't know what was going to happen. All we knew was his reputation, that he had turned the program around at Maryland, had done the same thing at Kentucky. Here's a guy, obviously, that was a real football man, and we didn't really know what to expect.
When he got on campus and started taking his tie off and his jacket off and unbuttoned his shirt, and all the Aggies there went crazy. That kind of fired me up. I thought that was someone I wanted to play for. He was an immediate hit with them. He was their kind of person to get in his shirt sleeves and be one of them and work and tell it the way it was.
Coach Bryant was never at a loss for words. I mean, the guy had so much charisma and so much ability to come in and take charge of a meeting or a gathering. He got everybody's attention.
Without tipping off the press or the fans, Bryant busts the Aggies 300 miles to Junction, a fly speck on the Texas map. He hadn't been apprised that much of the hill country, and most of West Texas was in the grip of a horrific drought. The temperature often soared beyond 110 degrees.
He told us, we're going to go somewhere, pack up. You don't need a lot of clothes because we're not going to be doing anything fancy. Leave your gear in the middle of the floor and come on down here with a small bag.
We had absolutely no idea. Went out and got on these buses, and we were sort of excited. It was a couple of days before training started, and I don't know how many hours it was to Junction, but when we got there, it looked pretty.
The Quincy huts was hot, very hot inside, and the practice field was just an old field with goat heads.
It got everybody's attention, you know, and then when we got out on the field and there was very little or no grass and you had goat heads, and you go down on the three-point stance and get goat heads in your hand.
The facility wasn't very good. So after about the first 3 or 4 days, we wound up going to the Junction's playing field in practice, which was a whole lot better. But the practice field wasn't really in top condition at that time.
As portrayed in the book by Jim Dent, the team practiced 4 hours in the morning and 4 more in the afternoon, without water breaks.
Coach Bryant, all the coaches at that time were so lucky they didn't kill a lot of players.
Players began to wilt beneath the blazing sun, their mouths as dry as the West Texas sand. Soon, they were quitting in droves.
Some left middle of the night, some left during the day, but the 7 that was with me disappeared somewhere. Being with them all day long, you could usually see it coming. You know, someone that was that wasn't having a good day, and their facial expression, you could tell when they'd had enough of it and they were going to be leaving, and would put our little side bets on who it was or who would be the next one out.
Several players would be sitting on the east side of that old Texaco station that had a rock finish on it. And there'd be, most of the time there were one player there, but sometimes there'd be 2 or 3 together. And they wanted to catch a bus, get out of there, get out of Junction as soon as possible. I'd open up and I'd say, okay, which way you want to go? You want to go east or west? And a couple of them said they didn't care which way it went, they just wanted the first bus out of here.
One afternoon, Billy Schrader collapsed face down in the yellow dust, and a hush fell over the death camp.
It was scary looking. I mean, there was no question about him faking it or anything like that. I mean, he'd gone till there wasn't anything left. He was completely dehydrated, had that real pale gray look to him. I mean, there wasn't any blood in his face and his head at all. I mean, it was really scary.
I was, I'm sure, basically going in and out of consciousness, and as I sort of came to in that process, I guess, I realized that my experience, what I was experiencing, was a matter of looking down upon them attending to me.
Schrader survived, and the message finally hit home with Bryant. 76 players had quit. The Aggie ranks were so thin that 145-pound manager Troy Summerlin had been issued a uniform.
Coach Bryant approached, and the rest of the coaches were one step back on each side. And he didn't even call me by name. He just said, "MGR," and I said, "Yes, sir." He said, "Are you eligible?" I said, "Yes, sir." He said, "Well, get your suit on in the morning." And I said, "Yes, sir." He said, "I'm serious, damn it." And I said, "Yes, sir." And that was it. Next morning, we had a suit on.
The season was but 8 days away. Those still standing were out of gas. It was time to pack and to go home.
We went out in 2 buses and came back in 1. It was about half full. When people asked me early on to describe Junction, that was the best way I could describe it. We went out full of enthusiasm, 2 full bus loads, and when we came back, it was 1 bus. It was about half full, and it wasn't much said.
The Junction Boys is based on a book by Jim Dent.